Oh, hi, Hazel. You naughty minx. Huh? What? Oh, Lads! Lads! We bloody slept in! Oi, hey! Underlay! The bloody... Attica! We shake a bleeding leg! Sorry, just a minute. Adam, get up, will you, and stop picking your nose. Kev, wipe that drool off and make yourself presentable. Ben, what have I told you about hiding the ladder from Kev's bunk bed? Look, stop whining and get sorted, will you, and I'll go let them in. Hello there, and welcome to the House of Hammer. Come in. No, don't worry about the mud on your shoes. Someone will clean it up, won't they? Well, it's so lovely to see you all again. And it constantly surprises me to see so many lovely new faces here too. Follow me, and we'll shortly arrive at our 10th room of the tour. I swear I'm getting lost in this place. Here we are, room 10, where we are about to encounter Dr. Morelle and the case of the missing heiress. This room of the tour still finds us ensconced in the warm embrace of 1949, and to be honest, will remain in that particular year for a couple more rooms too. We've been dragged, kicking and screaming, from the wonderfully excellent Celia and the sinister affair of poor Aunt Nora to our current feature, the aforementioned Dr. Morelle and the case of the missing heiress. Now this story tells the tale of the once very popular radio detective of Dr. Morelle, here played by Valentine Dial, and his ever-faithful assistant, although Lord knows why, Miss Frail, played by Julia Lang. Morelle fancies himself as something of a Sherlock Holmes figure, deducing and solving clues and riddles that us mere mortals would consistently struggle with. Also, and this is rather important mind you, he does have an extra weapon up his sleeve, and that is the power of hypnotism.
My dear Miss Frail, were I to observe that I were even remotely interested in whatever laboured form of excuse you're about to offer for your lateness, it would be an overstatement.
I'm terribly sorry, Dr. Morelle.
I gather from the reek of glandular extract of the civet cat, coupled with the unnatural glossiness of your hair, that you consider having a perm more important than transcribing my casebook.
Oh, but Dr. Morelle,
Humanity, my dear Miss Frail, will not agree with you. Kindly fetch your notebook and begin to take my dictation.
Despite his treatment of poor old Miss Frail, the doctor seemingly agrees to take on the case of the disappearance of her missing friend, Cynthia, the missing heiress herself.
And that was the last that was seen of Cynthia Mason. She was not in Lorimer's car when he drove down to the gates at the conclusion of his interview with Samuel Kimber. And although it's reported that he searched for her the whole night through, he was unable to find any trace of her. Nor could her stepfather throw any light on her whereabouts. Did she go up to London, after all? But then, why did she not communicate with the one friend who was in her entire confidence, Miss Frail? Had Miss Frail's mental equipment been equal to her impetuous anxiety, a good deal of trouble would have been saved. But alas, such is not the case. She then proceeded to embark upon a course of action which can only be described as sheer imbecility.
Dr. Morelle,
Quiet, please. Any interruption disturbs the flow of my thoughts.
With a rather poor plan of apparently going to Cynthia's father's mansion and posing as a housekeeper, Miss Frail embarks on a mission to find out more.
What do you want here? Are you the new housemaid?
Yes.
Are you strong? Can you cook? Can you mend clothes? You're not afraid of hard work, eh?
No, sir.
You do. Benson! Show this girl to her room. What's your name?
Amy.
Being in the mansion with Bensel the butler and the father, Philip Lever, it soon becomes apparent to Miss Frail that not all is as it seems. Before we properly delve into the film, We thought you might like to know a little more about Dr. Morelle himself, Mr. Valentine Dial, and the rather extraordinary career he had. And, to tell us all about it, it's the man we all wish was our personal Valentine, Mr. Ben Taylorson.
Our hammer hero for this episode is none other than Dr. Morelle himself, Valentine Dial. But who was Valentine Dial? Well, he was the man in black. But hang on a minute, I thought that was Roy Orbison. Or am I only thinking that because he wore dark glasses all of the time? I wonder why he did that. Well, this is the 21st century, let's look it up. So, during a tour of the UK in 1963, he left his regular glasses on a plane, but had the dark glasses with him and decided to keep wearing them because he couldn't see without glasses. And the look kind of just stuck, apparently. But anyway, I wasn't thinking of Roy Orbison. His nickname was the Big O. No, I've mixed him up with Johnny Cash, who was known as the Man in Black. As was, according to further research, American professional stock car driver Dale Earnhardt, British serial killer Peter Moore, palpable liaison to Mussolini Pietro Tacchi Venturi, any association football referee, and of course, Valentine Dial. How very confusing. And, should they have all met at a cocktail party or similar, they couldn't really even have referred to themselves collectively as the Men in Black, because that's those secret agent alien lads. Anyway, let's overcome this confusion and get back to Valentine Dial, who was born in London in 1908. Both of his parents were actors, and, when he finished school, he went to Oxford and gained a law degree, but his love was for acting, and his early years were spent on the stage. He actually appeared with his father Franklin in a production of Henry V in 1934. It was, however, on the radio where Valentine would gain greater notoriety, and his famous nickname. As the presenter of Appointment with Fear, a horror drama series broadcast on BBC Radio in the 1940s and 50s, Dial played a character called the Man in Black, who would introduce both classic and newly commissioned horror stories.
Appointment with Fear. This is your storyteller, the Man in Black. Here again to bring you another placid evening in our Far Side series, Appointment with Fear.
So effective was his narration that the programme itself was at one point rebranded as The Man in Black. But Dial's career was a truly varied one. In addition to his on-stage and radio work came film and TV. On the small screen in the 1950s, he starred in an 8-part adaptation of Treasure Island, was a regular on the fortnightly magazine programme Kaleidoscope and the children's TV programme Whirligig, as well as the Peter Sellers comedy programmes The Idiot Weekly and A Show Called Fred. It's logical to assume that this breadth of work was perhaps to avoid being typecast in solely sinister roles, owing to the popularity of his radio exploits. Or does an actor just take whatever they can get? Anyway, other notable TV appearances through the 60s, 70s and 80s included playing Dr. Pascal Keldermans in World War II drama serial The Secret Army, and a singular appearance as Noel in Blake 7. Cementing his place somewhat more securely into science fiction folklore was his 13 appearances as Black Guardian in Doctor Who between 1979 and 1983.
These creatures have no knowledge of good or evil. Enlightenment will give them power. They will invade time itself. Chaos will come again, and the universe will dissolve.
As well as his appearance as Deep Thought in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, after having been heard in the original radio series. He also appeared in an episode of the first series of Blackadder. But it's Dial's work on the big screen that's earned him his place on the wall of Hammer heroes. Do we have a wall? Quick, Kev, erect a wall and hang Valentine Dial on it. Well, I don't know what you need to build a wall. Bricks, breeze blocks, plasterboard, divine intervention. Just crack on with it. Now, by my reckoning, and I accept that my reckoning can be occasionally shoddy, Valentine Dial starred in 4 Hammer films, including Dr. Morelle, of course, The Man in Black, where he played the Man in Black from the radio series, Room to Let, and lust for a vampire. We shall, of course, get to those other Hammer efforts in due course, so we'll not delve into them right now. But let's also mention in passing a notable non-Hammer turn on the big screen, as caretaker Mr. Dudley in Robert Wise's 1963 horror classic The Haunting. That is, in fact, just one of over 70 movie credits to Dial's name. Quite incredible when you consider it alongside his other work. Mind you, they're not all top-notch films, to be fair. Let us perhaps consider his turn as the voice of the Mummy, who narrates the 1970 movie Bizarre, also known as Tales of the Bizarre, and also known as The Secrets of Sex. It is, so the poster proclaims, the film they tried to stop, an erotic and horrifying journey into the mind of the undead. Right. Now, I've trailed through the reviews, so frankly you don't have to, with my favourite line being, I suppose the fireworks intercut with an orgy at the end was the easiest part to watch. So, I guess what I'm saying is, in fact in answer to a question I raised earlier, you do indeed, as a jobbing actor, have to take work where you can find it. In fact, there's a good reason for Dial taking so many roles over the years, a lot of them bit part or in productions perhaps not befitting his talents. He was declared bankrupt in 1953 and spent 21 years in the red before being hauled before a bankruptcy court again in 1974 to be declared bankrupt again. Is that even possible? Anyway, he was eventually discharged from bankruptcy in 1979. Discharged from bankruptcy? So made solvent then. Unbankrupt. Whatever. Valentine Dial was married 3 times, latterly to one of his onstage co-stars, Kay Woodman. He died aged 77 in June 1985. With a distinctive voice that became his trademark, made him famous, and earned him a cool, if apparently overpopular nickname, his place as a radio, science fiction, horror, and indeed Hammer legend is assured. And I think his career is best summed up in a way he once described himself, as the longest shining small star in the business.
Thank you, Ben. It's strange when you think about it, isn't it? I mean, sometimes you being known for having a soothing and magnetic voice is all people really think of you, isn't it? Anyway, I now have to use a sentence that I never thought I would ever utter in my life. Time to go against Ben's instructions and inform Kev to interrupt his erection and join the rest of the team for our habitual visit to the round table. So, joining myself, Ben and Kev, is none other than the 4th slice of our delicious pie, the wonderful Mr. Adam Roach.
So, gentlemen, Dr. Morelle. It's quite a small cast overall. The sort of the main characters all get a reasonable amount of screen time. So we've got Cynthia, who's the titular heiress that goes missing, and we have Kimber, her stepfather, and Peter, her beloved, and then of course Dr. Morelle and Miss Frill. But a character I'd like to start by talking about is Bensel the butler, who in addition to having one of the most fantastic accents I've ever heard in any film, is perhaps the most interesting character of the film.
Definitely the most singular character. He turns up, doesn't he, with like a lead that's empty of a dog. And I mean, it's almost like you can't quite believe what you're seeing. Is it the film quality that's obscuring the dog that he's supposed to be walking? No, he's actually not walking a dog. It's an invisible. He's kind of like a very genteel lunatic, which is an incredibly not brave step, I would say, but a really odd choice for a murder mystery. To just, everyone's very cut and dry, and you've got the secretary, and you've got the patriarch, and you've got the heiress, and you've got the investigator. And all of a sudden you've got this butler who walks invisible dogs and just keeps whacking out these pieces of wisdom. I think he's one of the, definitely, as you say, Ben, an amazing character.
I think it almost sets it up as kind of, is he going to be a villain or is he going to be helpful? But then they just kind of abandon that after about 3 minutes and they go, no, we can't make this character. He's just odd. So,
we'll just make him more odd as we go along.
We'll just make him odd but nice. What do you think, Smokey?
Well, first off, Ben, I want to say I'm surprised that you don't remember this gentleman because we personally have met him before because Hugh Griffith is in The Abominable Dr. Phibes. So when you said he has a kind of the singular accent, I recognized it. I knew it straight away, but it wasn't actually from there. He was also in Oliver as well as a fantastic drunk person, which I thought was wonderful. But it's interesting what Adam said there, though, which is that everyone else in this, the cast, the characters, are all kind of cut and dry. They all are quite singular. However, he is the only one really of the cast who has facets to his personality, shall we say.
Yeah.
Granted, he's confusing and he's a little bit all over the shop, but out of all the cast, he was the one I empathise with most for being put into this ridiculous situation that he was in.
Yeah, he was very stuck in the middle, wasn't he? Even though he actually spent most of the time talking about his dog and then saying that he's been dead 15 years. But yeah, he was saying like he was the only help in the house now, apart from Cynthia and Kimber. That was it as far as the household was concerned.
I also think as well, it's quite a feat for a character, with this amount of script time, should we say, not necessarily screen time, but to have outshone, I think, even Dr. Morelle. Because Dr. Morelle in this comes across as just the biggest tosser I've ever seen in my life. He's such an... Oh, God. I mean, look, I will have, hopefully, if this is edited in the way we've planned, have told you about Dr. Morelle and why I love him so much. I'm supremely disappointed that he's outshone by a butler with an invisible dog in this film. It's just insane.
Oh, you classist. Oh, I see. It's the upper class for the win, is it, Adam?
It's nothing to do with that at all. Like, Dr. Morelle is such an interesting character. I'm sure we'll get onto this as we go along in our review. But you wouldn't believe what an interesting character Dr. Morelle is. And for them to have reduced him to his nasty elements, it makes you look elsewhere for someone to like, and your eye instantly falls upon Hugh Griffith because he is brilliant in this. I mean, you can tell why he won an Oscar for Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
He's just a great actor anyway. He's one of those faces. If you can't call him to mind now, you'll see him on screen and you go, oh, yes, of course, I know Hugh Griffith. Everyone knows Hugh Griffith. Even people who've never seen a film before 1980, which was when he died. You'll know his face. He's just ingrained in the British psyche. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, as you say, I do think he's a standout in this cast. I think he's brilliant. And as you say, like a minor character, butler, slightly lunatic, and yet you empathise with him.
Yeah, well, butlers. I mean, I've seen plenty of examples of barmy butlers since this, but I'm struggling to think of any ones that are earlier than this. I mean, there's Jeeves and Godfrey and even Alfred from Batman, but they're always on point. They're always, with it. They're not out there with the fairies. Can you think of any older ones, Adam? Because I know you've done a lot of butlers over your time.
Well, thank you very much, yeah. Cheers, Gav. I spell butler with 2 T's. Oh dear. I mean, do you want a serious answer now, or should we just move on?
Go on, then.
If you can.
If you can pull it back from that, good luck.
Well, classic butlers, I would say probably my man Godfrey. I would say William Powell, the quintessential. He starts as a tramp, comes into a house as a butler and totally changes them all. But for me, if we're talking B movies, one of the butlers that always stands out for me was Halliwell Hobbs in Sherlock Holmes Faces Death from 1943, which is slightly before this. But he's one of those butlers who listens at the door and then goes missing halfway through, and he talks in riddles. If you haven't seen that, that's a great butler. But Dinner for One, I mean, it's slightly after this, 1963, but based on a vaudeville play. It's that viral British sketch that's 18 minutes long that's shown all over Europe on New Year's Eve. to bring in the new year. It's one of those viral things that if you haven't seen it, Google Dinner for One and watch it. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a butler trying to keep the spirits of an old lady up by seating her at a table, and basically all her friends are dead, but he kind of plays along and pours her a drink, pours them a drink, with 5 people, and then has to walk around the table drinking all of their drinks, and then he has to eat all of their food, and then she says, "Sherry's, please."
This is sounding like Crichton.
It's basically
I do think that's where Red Dwarf got it.
Yeah, I would totally say that.
It is wonderful.
It's genius. Yeah, I would say that.
So, I think, Kev, you mentioned that it's quite a small household in this country mansion. So you've got Kimber, who's the stepfather, and Cynthia, the stepdaughter, and then you've got Bensel, the butler. Now, Cynthia goes missing, and to investigate her going missing comes Miss Frill, who happens to be Dr. Morelle's assistant, but also the friend of Cynthia. And she arrives, and for the second film in a row, it appears in the 1940s you could just turn up at any country house and pretend to be the hired help, and they just welcome you in on the assumption that, a commoner, you must be here to work for me, even though I don't know who you are, I've never interviewed you, I have no idea what you're doing, but do come in and make my breakfast.
Isn't it incredible?
Which she can't do.
Yeah, which she can't do.
How many masters of the house answered the door in those days as well? "Oh, hello. I own this house. Yes, please work for me. That's fine."
But she just wanders in. She wanders into the kitchen.
Good point, yeah.
To be fair, though, Dr. Morelle does that later as well. He walks up to someone's house and he doesn't get invited in. He just barges in.
I think the moral of the story would be Kimber would have got away with it if he'd only invented or invested in a Yale lock for his front door. Then he'd have been absolutely fine.
Oh, no. Hammer didn't see the future.
They did. They really did.
Keep the job seekers out.
Yeah. That's the irony. Well, she wasn't even there to seek a job. She just got one by accident.
I'm here to investigate. You're here to clean the toilets. Thank you very much. Go upstairs. No, I'm here to investigate the disappearance of my... You're here to clean the toilets. Thank you very much. Second floor. Brilliant. 10 bob a week. If anyone wants that translated to modern money, no.
Oh my God.
Oh,
no, we're not going there.
No. I know.
If you do, go and listen to the last episode.
No.
Yes.
Do not bother us here.
Do that. But bring a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Pow.
Miss Frail. Frail by name, frail by nature.
But is she? Is she not just browbeaten? Again, we're coming back to something we mentioned with Celia and a couple of others, is that we get this spunky female again. We get this intrepid female with ideas, according to Dr. Morelle, above her station. But we'll come back to his opinions in a little bit. But also is the fact that she is not bad at her job. She is just intrepid, but he just puts her down all the time. Surely there's a difference between the two.
She makes wrong decision after wrong decision, though, which is the problem. And that's what gives Dr. Morelle the buy. But even the decisions that she kind of gets, well, let's take a couple of the decisions that she makes. She decides one of the things that she needs to do is go and see Peter, who is the guy who Cynthia was engaged to be married to. And her and Bensel just blunder into his house. And they have absolutely no... He might be a murderer. They have absolutely no idea. There's no plan for what they're going to do when they get there. It's a bit like that bit of Ghostbusters where they find the ghost and then have no idea what to do with it when they found it.
That's not technically a wrong decision, though, Ben. That's a choice they make, but it's not a wrong decision.
What, in Ghostbusters?
No, let's just talk about silly sausage. No. Okay, so Peter Venkman, right? No.
But it's a terrible decision. Let's just blunder over there.
Right, okay, you say it's a wrong decision. I disagree, right? She made a choice, and the choice she made, okay, it blundered into something, fair enough. However, you've got to admit that later in the film, something occurs, and she does end up phoning Dr. Morelle.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Now, if she hadn't have done anything she had done, Dr. Morelle wouldn't have come to the mansion to solve the crime. Okay? So she made the right decision there, Ben. Come on, you've got to admit that.
I do not have to admit that.
Yeah, you bloody do.
The decision you're referring to results in the death of one of the main characters.
He was going to die anyway.
That's your argument. He was definitely going to die anyway.
Yeah, I mean, 50 years of old age.
I hate to say it, Ben. We're all going to die. So his time just came a little bit earlier. Because,
within the 74 minutes running time of this film, apparently. Yeah,
well, he was just unlucky, wasn't he?
Allow me, please, to finish. That her decisions, that basically, so she got someone killed. She admitted to Dr. Morelle that she's woefully out of her depth and might be about to die herself. Dr. Morelle arrives, puts the wheels in motion to save the day, gives her a very simple instruction of something to do. She doesn't do it and almost ends up dying herself. No, she's done terrifically well, Smokey. You're absolutely right.
That was not her fault.
Smokey, you said only one death. That's a quarter of the cast in this film.
It's a fifth, but okay, fair enough.
Just think how many people there would have been at the end of this film if she hadn't got that guy killed. That's all I can say.
Just one. It's just one.
It would have been like Murder at Moorstone's Manor. She would have been stood there in the hallway, surrounded by bodies.
All I'm saying is, it's just one, right?
Fair enough. My problem with this film is not Miss Frail. I think she, as you say, Smokey, I'm kind of on your side on this one.
What?
I think she's intrepid and she has good intentions.
Thank you.
But I think, she doesn't, she has good intentions. She doesn't go out to get people killed, but she does mess up Royal. The problem is that instead of being gracious about it when he comes to help things, he just basically goes, oh my God, I can't believe how much you this up. He just goes on about how awful she is. I mean, the framing story, you can't say he's wrong. He's just really nasty about it. The whole film begins with him, like, he's saying, all right, Miss Frail, take some notes on this. My assistant, Miss Frail, was such a numpty when she invested, and she's writing this thing down going, oh my God, he's talking about me. He makes her write down how bad she was. She basically this thing up, and I want an exclamation mark after up. Thank you very much. I just think if people mess up this bad and get people killed like Miss Frail, I think they deserve forgiveness. I can't believe I said that.
I agree. I'm agreeing with you.
What I would add, though, is for all we maybe slightly disagree about Miss Frail's competence, there is no argument that Dr. Morelle is an arse. I'm not going to argue with that.
He is a douchebag. There is no other word for it. Oh my God.
That's not what I'm taking from this. Not what I'm taking from this at all. I think Dr. Morelle is deeply in love with Miss Frail, but absolutely daren't say a word. So he's basically pulling her hair in the playground and running away.
Interesting.
Okay, Kev, you're wrong. So Dr. Morelle is a classist douchebag, as Adam said, quite rightly. Is that he treats her terribly. And I know you say it could be the kind of playground thing, and okay, fair enough. I get where you're coming from. That's not a problem. Yeah. But can we just quickly also reference the deep misogyny in this film? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's there on the screen from word number one of the film. It's there, right? There's only 2 females in the cast, and they're treated terribly from the very, very beginning. And so, also, it got to the point at the end where Dr. Morelle is there to save the day, to solve the crime, and he doesn't stop being a dick the entire time he's doing it. He can't just sit back and be humble and just sort of say, well, here, look, here's the facts. This is why this person is bad. That's why they should be imprisoned. He has to go, oh, well, she was stupid. He was wrong. He's an amateur. And this is why I'm better than everyone. And don't get me wrong, that's what's going to happen later in the show as well. But it's just, oh, come on. Did you not just get really frustrated with Dr. Morelle?
I don't think anyone's going to argue with you on that one. I mean, he is.
I could try.
This is what kind of pisses me off. This is what kind of pisses me off about this movie is that I am actually a big fan of the Dr. Morelle stories, and in those stories, he is very much he's not misogynist at all. He's just. It's almost like he's a very high functioning. He's definitely on the spectrum. There's something like, he just doesn't function like other people. He's like, functions outside of the social norms. And sometimes he's blunt, but it's not meant, he doesn't mean it to be awful. He means it, I'm just speaking exactly what's coming into my mind as I'm saying it. And if it offends you, then I'm terribly sorry, but, I'm trying to get information across. That's kind of what he's like in the radio stories. In this film, they seem to have completely misunderstood that and brought him across as this really misogynist. He's just a douchebag all the way through. There's no other word for it. He comes in and he's so superior. He's so entitled. He's so privileged, and everyone is beneath him. I mean, there are ways that I'm sure people in society feel that way, but there are filters you put on the way you interact with people, and there seem to be no filters on this guy at all. It's kind of a shame because you kind of wonder who to root for in this film. You watch him, and it's like, yeah, you're very clever, but I don't like you. And that's the problem. If he's the hero of this film, I can kind of see why they didn't continue the series.
Had Miss Fraille's mental equipment been equal to her impetuous anxiety, a good deal of trouble would have been saved. But alas, such is not the case. She then proceeded to embark upon a course of action which can only be described as sheer imbecility.
Dr. Morelle,
Quiet, please. Any interruption disturbs the flow of my thoughts.
I think that's a perfect way of looking at it, Adam, is that's the problem I had with this film, is that I didn't really like anyone. I mean, the butler, yeah, is great, and
he's interesting.
Yeah, and she's happy-go-lucky kind of, and wanting to do good, but everyone else was just a dislikable character. And I think this film could work seriously well as a stage play. Because it's all set in, three settings at the most? And I think that could work really well. And you could separate it out bit by bit, and it would work a lot better than it does on film. But when the characters are just so unlikable, it was... I'll be perfectly honest, lads, even though it was only just over an hour long, an hour and 10 long or whatever it was, this struggled to grab my attention. I don't know if you guys feel that way.
100%. 100%.
Pretty much, yeah. I always think of Miss Fraille as being like the Shaggy character in Scooby-Doo. She's the one that's kind of stumbling through the plot and things are happening to her, and she does get to the conclusion somehow, but just by dumb luck more than any sense of survival.
That's a fantastic comparison. I however, Kev would recommend that you don't class any woman as Shaggy in the future, because that could just be misconstrued.
Hey, it wasn't me.
Good point.
Very good. Very good.
I have to say, I was really looking forward to this film because I'm a big Dr. Morelle fan. I have to say this is actually my least favourite Hammer film I've seen so far. Not because of anything, apart from that, I was so bored by it. Absolutely nullified by this film. I couldn't believe how long it was taking to do simple things. It's like I got to 40 minutes in the film and Dr. Morelle hadn't started even coming back into the story to start solving things. It had taken that long for Miss Fraille to blunder her way through the household and ascertain that, something sinister might have happened to the heiress. And I could not, I checked my watch and I was like, I can't believe this thing has another half an hour to go. I'm so bored. And I actually turned it off. And then I was like, no, I have to see it through because the ending might be something surprising and something good. So I watched it to the end. It was an absolute grind. I mean, this was the worst viewing experience for me than Sporting Love, which was, oh my goodness me. I can forgive a film for being bad. That's the thing. I actually don't mind when a film is bad. Just don't waste my life. Like River Patrol, I know that's a bad film.
Life.
I know.
Listen to him.
Sounds more like Morelle every day.
I know River Patrol is a bad film, but it took 40 minutes of my life, and it's easy for me to sort of write that time off because there was kind of enough in there to make me go, oh, I don't mind, because it was, it was just a throwaway thing. But this film is unforgivably long and unforgivably dull. I think this film, for me, more than any other, has crystallized what I hate about bad films. The thing I can't forgive about films is when they waste my time. This, for me, was a complete waste of time. Terrible film.
Fair enough, mate. Well, I will add to that, Adam. I'm agreeing with you. There's one scene in particular that really, really wastes our time. I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a scene right towards the end, and Dr. Morelle and Miss Frail are in a room, and she's pacing the floor. They're not saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
She paces it for a good minute, if not more. And I was sat there going, are they going to say something? And they don't. And it was driving me up the wall, and finally that happened. However, in regards to our House of Hammer bingo, no pub in this film. I was devastated. It's the first time it's happened.
We do have a big fall.
We do have a big fall, but there's no pub. No pub, no brewery. So,
This is what's sadly lacking.
They went big with the brewery in Digbarton, and then they went to a fancy little bar in Celia.
They were having it
and
large,
now look, no bar.
And this is why it's the worst one that Adam's seen.
Do you know this is it?
I couldn't smell the alcohol on their breath.
Yeah, Adam had no gin on screen, so it's just bad. Yeah, but I've got to agree with everything Adam said. I've watched this twice in the last week, and I found myself my mind wandering, which it shouldn't do when it's what is the time?
67 minutes long.
67 minutes.
It's 40 minutes too long.
Your mind shouldn't wander for that.
No.
And so it's just like no, it's what a damn shame. Because there, as I said, better as a screenplay, not as a film.
What I would add to what you said, Smokey, to be honest, there are several of Miss Frill's scenes where she takes an awful long time to get to whatever she's doing, and you just think, come on. And the pacing scene is one. Creeping into the house is another one that goes on for about 10 minutes, and you think, why, in the dark, and you think, what is the point of this? One thing I would add, because I think we're getting round to kind of summing this up now, I don't think we've got an awful lot more to add without giving too much away for anyone who cares. One thing I would like to underline, without saying exactly why, we can talk about it off pod, is that the actual climactic point, the underlying motive to the crime doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all.
Because it's all to do with certain amounts of paperwork and paperwork that needs to be in place for people to inherit money.
Yep.
And the key point as to how money would pass from one character to the other, something hasn't happened that needs to happen in order for this to make any sense whatsoever. Which, so you think, so as Adam was saying, you sat through 70 minutes thinking, yeah, this is time I'm never getting back, and it doesn't make any sense. Which is, a second kick in the groin from this particular film, Adam.
It's just I don't mean to push this point, but this film for me was kind of a revelation in terms of understanding why I don't like films sometimes. Like I don't mind a terribly made film. Like I like River Patrol because it's just so crapulent. Like, the Mr. Burns word is so perfect for it. It's just, but it's fun, and it's brief. Yeah. And you're looking at the runtime, you're like, well, there's only 5 minutes left. Something's got to happen, and then it does. If you smashed all of the important pieces of this film down and made an efficient film out of the 67 minutes, it would probably be about 47 minutes long. There is far too much, carrying a candle through a dark room to another room, and then entering that room, and then carrying a candle through that room, and then opening a door and carrying a candle. It's like, for God's sake, why didn't you make whatever they're trying to find, put it in the second room? Why do I need to see 6 rooms of it? It's just utterly wasted time. That's what I don't like about this film. Plus the fact that they turned the Dr. Morelle character into just a hideous person. There's nowhere to root for in this film. The mystery doesn't make sense, as you say, and it's just so bloody boring.
Do you think that the geography actually forces what they produce next? Because if you look, they're obviously using the same country house for all the locations, if you like, to make it on the cheap as possible. And let's face it, this probably shows where the Hammer are going as far as they're going to use a country house. And this is why we end up with so many of these weird, either gothic or sort of traditional detective stories.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, don't you think this is a really regressive film? In terms of, like, the last sort of 2 or 3, they've kind of upped their game a lot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there's just this huge step back. Now we don't get a character like Celia, who, is actually breaking the mold at all. We get Miss Frail, who is spunky and has good intentions, but is completely dominated by a misogynist and told how stupid she is and how worthless everything she did was. And, you know, I know she causes the death. I'm not saying that's forgivable.
Just the one.
I'm just saying it just seems to me like a huge. It's like, hey guys, look what we're doing here. And you go, well, that's interesting. Hey, look, this one's even more interesting. You go, wow, it really is interesting. Hey, look, here's Celia. She's even more interesting. You go, wow, you're really on a roll. And then all of a sudden they kick you straight in the balls. This film is it's a real step back.
So I think we've all kind of shown our hands a little bit as regards how we feel about Dr. Morelle, the character, and the movie. But to sum up, I'd like to go around the table and ask you all for a rating out of 10. But also, it would be nice if we could say one positive thing each about the film as well, end on a positive note. So, Smokey?
Okay, I would just like to piggyback on something Adam just said there, which is that in regards to Celia, which I think we were spoiled a little bit by Celia.
Yeah.
With how good it was. And obviously, I know a couple of you have done... you've watched the films that are forthcoming, and I haven't, so I don't know what's coming. But it feels to me like Celia, I mentioned in the last episode, Celia is the watermark now for how good Hammer can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then to leap from that to this is a step down. And I've got to say this, Kev, forgive me, I've got to say this to Adam and Ben, River Patrol is better than this. So,
well, of course it is. I mean, that's number one on the chart.
What do you mean, of course? Well, there is no of course in that sentence.
Well, it's at the top of every chart so far. So, yes. So it would be, wouldn't it?
So how would you rate this one then, Smokey?
10.
My word. It's between a 3 and a 4, but I'm going to give it a 3 because I can't quite push it to 4. I mean, it's a wasted opportunity. It's a real pity, actually, when Adam says that how they've made the character for the screen, because you could imagine him being quite a sympathetic and good character, but he's just not that in this film. And it's
remember we were finishing on a positive.
I was just going.
Are we building up to it? Right.
We're building up to it, and that's a real pity. So yeah, this is not a hearty recommend from me at all. However, positive is my favourite line that literally made me laugh out loud, is when Dr. Morelle is being rather condescending to Miss Frail. And he's saying, right, you've been through a lot today, but I think you should just go to bed now. Go upstairs and have a quiet sleep. He's like, oh, thanks, because I was going to have a loud sleep, but now that you've told me that, I'm going to have a quiet one instead. You misogynistic... That's my positive of this one.
Kev, what's your rating and give us something positive?
Okay, well, following that, it's actually a walk in the park because I found loads of positives in this film. Honestly, it's the film that has the wobbliest gallows in the world.
I don't know what was. If someone was at the bottom shaking them,
somebody was just holding them up.
How many times did they show it on screen as well?
I know,
but also
it was actually wobblier than the trees.
No relevance whatsoever to the script as well. It meant nothing.
Not at all.
Nothing.
No. But grand to see anyway. The off-chord Silent Night music every time Hugh Griffith walked on stage as well. Fantastic. I'm up for that. I have no idea why that was there. It's not Christmas, but never mind. It's Hugh Griffith playing a nutcase. Might as well have Silent Night playing. And then, of course, you've got Kimber, who, as far as house rules go, is absolutely bananas because God knows what it would have made if MTV were around because she's really not got a lot going for her at the time anyway.
Nah.
He's so pantomimic. It's fantastic to see. He is just the mustachio twirling villain for me. There's other bits. I mean, I loved 3 minutes only when Dr. Morelle actually gets a call and it's Miss Frail and she's in peril. She's in deep, deep peril and it's a reverse charges call. He goes, oh, all right then. 3 minutes
I
only.
did like that part.
And,
too. That was good.
I
No,
love that.
no. When he says, right, no, when I'm practicing science, and he was there practicing fencing.
Fencing? Yes.
It's a science.
That's scientific, that is.
Dick!
Yeah.
Positives, lads. We're finishing on positives.
Sorry. Okay, he was a happy dick. How's that?
That is great. Valentine Dale. I mean, I could watch him in anything, and it was great to see him very young. You know, it's weird because I'm used to seeing him from sort of the 80s when he was the Black Guardian in Doctor Who. He was the voice of Deep Thought in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's in City of the Dead, which is the first Amicus film. And it's great to see him as a tall, thin dude. He's amazing. Yeah, dude. No, honestly, he's fantastic. And I would let him hypnotize me with a small cutlass any day.
Have you given this a rating in amidst all of that gushing, Kev?
After all I've said about it, I will give it a 6 out of 10. Obviously, there's a lot of drawbacks to it, but yeah, 6 out of 10.
So, Adam, your rating and something positive?
I think it's a bit of a step back for Hammer, unfortunately, because they seem to be on a roll. I have seen the next couple of films, and I'm delighted to tell you that they get back onto their swing. I do think this is a slightly regressive film in lots of ways, and I'm really, really sorry that Dr. Morelle's one and only cinematic outing was this film, where they chose to take all the worst qualities of Dr. Morelle and present it in this mystery, which is kind of interesting. And I do like Hugh Griffith's character. I mean, there are things to enjoy in it, don't get me wrong. The oddballs that populate the film are really kind of watchable. But I think Dr. Morelle is an awful... It's like the worst version of Dr. Morelle you could have put on film. And you won't root for the guy, and you can understand why they didn't go ahead with the series they had planned. I would give this 2 out of 10. I think it's really bad. It's unforgivably long. They could have got this story told and out and done and made it fun in 45 minutes, 47 minutes, 50 minutes maybe.
I agree with that.
I just think it's too long, and you feel every minute of this thing. The setup for this film, the first 45 minutes are just crushingly bad. But if I want to end on a positive, I would say I did find the hypnotism stuff kind of interesting. And I did like the double bluff at the very final reveal when it comes to who the villain is. But for me, this is probably the worst Hammer film we've seen so far, and that's unfortunate because I am a Dr. Morelle fan. How about you, Ben?
Oh, thank you very much, Adam. Rating wise, I'll give it a 3. I'm not going to repeat everything that's been said by Smokey and Adam. I know, Kev, you slightly disagree, but that's the joy, isn't it, of subjective film reviewing? Is that when I had to watch it a second time, I was pained because I knew that it was going to be another.
So agree with you.
Another 70 minutes, and I'm doing that thing.
67 minutes ever.
Well, I'm doing that thing where I'm like I'm like moving my mouse down to the bottom of the computer, thinking, surely we must have reached half an hour by now. Oh, 18 minutes.
That kind of the way through? No.
But to end on a positive, I thoroughly enjoyed, without giving away who it happens to, the worst escape attempt ever at the end, where the plan appeared to be climb on the roof and fall off, and which duly happened, to which Dr. Morelle remarked, yes, he's dead.
Yeah.
Well, he's a doctor. He'll know.
Yeah, well, yes, doctor of fencing. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it, and I wouldn't recommend it. But I've seen it now, and I never have to watch it again.
I would quickly say, if you are even remotely intrigued in the character of Dr. Morelle, then do check out the radio series, which is pretty wonderful.
Well, there we have it. 3 against 1 this time around. Or, to put it another way, One slice of our pie is a bit dodgy looking. You will have to judge this for yourself and see if you agree with the 3 correct hosts or not. As mentioned earlier and during the roundtable, quite a substantial part of the plot of the film revolves around hypnosis and hypnotism. But is it all swinging timepieces, swirling spoons in teacups, or hypnotising a baseball player into attempting to murder the Queen? So, to give us a proper insight into all things mesmerising and mystical, it's our very own mesmeric and hypnotically alluring Kev Moore.
Whether it be hypnotism, mesmerism, brain befuddlement, or whatever you want to call it, I thought I'd have a look at how it's portrayed at the pictures. This turned out to be a rather large rabbit hole indeed, enough to comfortably fit a carrot muncher that weighs more than Jupiter in there. It all dates back to the late 18th century, when German physician Franz Mesmer developed mesmerism, which was lucky for him. I mean, talk about nominative determinism. Phew. His theory was all about the balance of magnetic power in our body, using animal magnetism. Now, despite the scientific community binning this magnetism idea off as another crackpot theory only a few years later, the fact that Mesmer was curing many symptoms of patients did cause a little confusion. It was so confusing that from the Germans' results, a Scottish ophthalmologist coined the word hypnosis based on a Greek word, which the Austrian Sigmund Freud used and discovered about our unconscious processes. Which is lucky for Smokey and myself, because that does most of the heavy lifting on a daily basis. Hypnotism itself is not some kind of dark art or witchcraft, where some poor impressionable soul is forced to carry out the bidding against their will. No. It actually has no sleepy victims at all. Rather than that, you have a willing participant and a hypnotist. It's a well-studied and legitimate form of adjunct treatment for conditions ranging from obesity and pain after surgery to anxiety and stress that normally doesn't happen straight away, but takes many repetitive sessions to click. So with the debunking of the central myths done, why are they still as strong today in films as they've always been? I mean, if literally anyone could get people to do their bidding, I'd have already made sure that the House of Hammer podcast would be number 1 in all the world for starters. Number one. Ho-hum. Anywho, in quite literally thousands of famous instances from the cabinet of Dr. Caligari to boss baby family business over a century later, hypnosis is still the go-to fiendish device for making a character perform, out of character? It's usually as a completely will-free zombie, forced to carry out their master's foul bidding. When did you last see a film with a happy ending that focused on someone giving up the smoking after a regular course of sessions, for instance? No? Me neither. Unfortunately, this will continue to be the fallback for many filmmakers because of our general suspension of disbelief. Occasionally, this practice is called out though, and explained away like this scene from Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
We've come a long way from the days when hypnosis was regarded as a form of magic or witchcraft, but it's surprising how many misconceptions and fears remain. When I call for volunteer subjects, I get the oddest reactions. And the fact is, you can't hypnotize a person against his will.
Could you hypnotize me right now?
Would you like me to?
It actually plays on the audience's ignorance of the facts, as the hypnotized Phyllis Thaxter regresses to a past life in the 1800s. This also never happens. She then picks up a pair of scissors and kills her husband. This is but a drop in the ocean of obliviousness though, as we're always happy to let the writers get their wicked way with us. Does this mean that we've actually all been the willing participants in a kind of mass hypnosis? If that's the case, I don't know about you, but I'm happy to be a sleepy zombie and give the whole thing a bye. When it's employed well, it can be as effective as the aforementioned Caligari, Knight of the Demon, or the Manchurian Candidate, and make for an interesting story. Now where's my shiny miniature cutlass? Number one. Number one. Number one.
Sorry about that. I had to have a number one for some reason. Please excuse me. Thank you, Kevy. Beautiful stuff. We are almost at the end of our tour for this episode, but before we go, my fellow brothers-in-arms and I thought we would have a go at conducting a little experiment to fill you all in and give you that required tingle of excitement. It's the spellbinding, splendid specimen that is Adam Roach.
One of the more mystifying elements of Dr. Morelle, the case of the missing heiress, is that hypnotism plays such a prominent part in not just committing the crime, but solving it. We were intrigued by this concept, and after not enough drinks, let me tell you, we decided to see if hypnosis was something that anyone could do. So we took the quite reckless step of sending Smokey off into the wilds of the internet to see if he could, in just 3 short days, master the mystical art of hypnosis. And on that fateful Saturday, we all got together on Zoom to see if Smokey could hypnotize us. Really.
Well then, my friends, we come off the back of watching Dr. Morelle. And part of the main part of the storyline has to do with hypnosis and hypnotism. So we thought, why the hell not? Let's give the House of Hammer Boys a try at hypnosis. And believe it or not, I was volunteered to do such a thing. So I have done 3 days of research, which
3 days.
Believe it
When's
or
the
not,
PhD coming?
which, believe it or not, is not long enough to do this properly. So,
I'm sure it is. Darren Beige.
so.
Yeah, did Paul McKenna do a full 5 days?
Oh, my word. Paul McKenna, he is not well respected in the hypnotism world, but there we go. Let's
you
come back
know.
to that another time. I know. Well, he is now my underling, so it's all good. Okay, so we are going to give this a try. I would like to give a little brief glimpse behind the curtain is that someone contacted Adam and said, this is a really bad idea. What if someone's driving and Smokey hypnotizes them into crashing? Which I thought was hilarious. All this will hypnotize you into doing is turning the podcast off. So that is the only thing you have to worry about. And
It can only go well. It can only go well.
I will actually agree with you and also add an addendum to you, Bender, and say I've had so much beer that this can only work well. So.
I believe that's how Paul McKenna starts every session.
Hey,
Paul Daniels.
Stop bringing that hack's name up, will you?
Sorry, I'm trying to set you a benchmark to ascend above.
I'm already above him.
Smokey's part
Because
of
you've had 5 cans of Foster's.
7.
Sorry. Smokey's part of the mesmerist world now, right? He knows the hierarchy, and Paul McKenna is right down there.
Is
beneath
he in
his
the magic
shoe.
circle?
Yes, he is, yes.
Bloody right I am.
That sounds rude.
Not a euphemism.
For the sake of clarity, we should also say that we are all, at the moment, looking at each other on Zoom, apart from me, because my internet's terrible. But we can all see you, Smokey. That's the most important.
That's right. That is the most important thing. Although I will have to reinforce is that this type of hypnosis I'm doing does not require us to look into each other's eyes. So this is a bonus for Adam having no video connection at the moment.
I thought it was a bonus just for us looking into your eyes.
No, just because Adam's so pretty. So, all right. Right.
So you found the least romantic version of hypnosis you could.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how I roll.
Hypnosis by telephone. I like this.
We began with Kev, who had a very simple request.
Okay, here we go. Kevy.
Yes.
I asked all 3 of you to bring something to the discussion of hypnosis. Something that you wish to achieve from doing hypnosis. Do you have something that you wish to achieve?
I do.
Okay.
I want to speak as clearly as Adam.
Oh, wow.
On a podcast.
I like it. Well done. So, my friend, right, I know this is going to sound a little strange, but you need to keep your head focused on the screen. You can look at Ben, you can look at me, or you can look at yourself. It doesn't matter. You need to focus your eyes on your ceiling, but you don't need to move your head or your neck. Yeah, that's it. Well done. That's very good. So just keep them focused there just for a minute. The moment that your eyes start feeling tired, that's when you drop them down and close them.
And as Smokey's dulcet voice penetrated Kev's very skull, Ben readied his request.
My friend who I have known for a decade, have you thought of something that you wish to achieve through hypnosis?
I have.
Okay, my friend, what is it?
I'd like to be less anxious.
Really? Fair enough. Okay.
I'm a very anxious person, and I could do with less anxiety in my being.
Okay, well, we will do this again. Just a couple of minutes. As you saw with Kev, it doesn't last long. The same as with Kev. If you do not move your head or your neck, but you look up to the ceiling and just...
Again, the great and powerful Smokey, armed to the teeth with 3 days' worth of Reddit research, infiltrated Ben's mind via the ears in an attempt to rid him of the anxieties that have plagued him. And so we came to the last guinea pig, myself, with my own modest request.
Adam, my friend, my good friend, who I've known for many years now, what is one thing you wish to achieve from this this hypnosis?
Well, if anything, the great and powerful Smokey, I would like to be able to stop missing the people that have left me in life.
That's very powerful, Adam. I appreciate that. Okay, this is a tricky one, but we will do it. So, you remember what I instructed to Ben and Kev? Don't move your head, don't move your neck, look up to the ceiling, and as soon as you feel your eyes getting heavy...
We, of course, shall not reveal the exact technique used by the great Smokey on the fateful Zoom call. For all we know, you might be driving a truck and find yourself careering wildly towards a tree. Or you might be walking a tightrope, or trying to decant some harmful chemicals or something. Safety first. So Ben asked Smokey to cure him of his anxiety. Kev asked to have a voice like mine. And I asked Smokini the All-Powerful to take away the ache I sometimes get when I miss people who are no longer around. We revisited with our 3 guinea pigs a few days later in order to let the magic of Smokey do its work. So let's go on over to Ben, who wished to be less anxious. Did the magic work?
Yeah, and thanks to Smokey's hypnosis, I'm not anxious at all anymore. No. Well, apart from the fear of Western civilization folding in on itself. Just that and the threat posed by non-indigenous squirrels. And climate change. And that mole that I have that I'm sure changed shape overnight. Or those youths that hang around outside the one stop. Also, what if I spontaneously combust whilst I'm on a train and it causes a scene? Or what if I get chosen to be the next pope? I don't want to be the pope. What if I fall in a hole? Or a rare burst of gamma radiation melts my knees? Or I find killer African hornets in my garage? What if I forget how to blink? I mean, no. All cured. No anxiety here.
Speaking for myself, who asked to not miss people so much, I can say that in the weeks since our last episode was released, I don't think I've ever felt so profound a sense of loss at not knowing you listeners were nearby. It got so bad that I actually found out where one of you lived, and I spent the night under your bed. Couldn't let you go. I won't tell you which one of you it was, though. I might want to visit again. Do me a favour, though. Run the vacuum around, would you? Maybe leave some biscuits under there. Oh, and do try and avoid baked beans for supper next time. Miss you. And lastly, let's go on over to Kev to see if his treatment at the hands of Smokey the All-Seeing did the trick. Did he end up with a voice like mine? By gum, I'm sorry you f***ers didn't have much luck. I'm proper happy with my results, though. To celebrate, I might go down to Chippy and spend the last of my gyro check on a slap-up dinner of chips with chips. Then I'm away down the offie to buy meself an ice-cold bottle of methylated spirits. By heck, I'll tell you what, it's fucking marvellous to speak clearly for the first time in my 100 years of life. Cheers, Smokey. You've made this Doncaster lad proper happy. Now, at last, maybe I can get a job in one of them high-class places we're always hearing about up here, like the Ritz, or Big Ben, or Greg's.
I think we can all agree that was a resounding success. Kinda, sorta, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Kev's voice lasts like that till the next episode, won't it? Speaking of next time, we have adventure, the high seas, and piracy to contend with. And you never know, we might end up talking about a film too. Between now and then, if you fancy being dazzled and beguiled by all we're up to, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at HouseHammerPod. And if you find yourself with the inexplicable desire to send us an email, you can do so at scream@houseofhammerpodcast.com. And once again, many thanks for all the downloads, interactions, ratings and reviews that we have received so far. We see them all, and we will always be forever grateful. So, that is us done for this episode. Time for the four of us to kick back, relax and enjoy a bit of a kip, as I'm sure we're all feeling sleepy. Very, very sleepy. So, from me, Smokey.
From me, Adam Roach.
From me, Kevin Moore.
From me, Ben Tillison.
And we cannot wait for you to return to us very soon at the House of Hammer.